Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file. Abbott Diabetes Care. Per prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
And away we go. Episode 1195 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, November 10th, 2025. It is the day on which the Washington Commanders are flying to Spain. They are flying to Spain on Monday night. This off a 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday. Yes, the Commanders got doubled up in this game. They now have 7 games left in the NFL's 2025 regular season. How much worse is our team season going to get? Never say that things can't get worse. They can always get worse. How much worse is the team season going to get? Have we reached rock bottom, or are we headed even lower? The Commanders now have lost 5 consecutive games, 6 of the team's last 7 games, and 7 of the team's last 9 games. Next up, this game against the Miami Dolphins in Spain this Sunday morning at 9:30 in a battle of 3-7 teams. But the Dolphins are coming off quite the win, a 30-13 home win over the Buffalo Bills on Sunday afternoon. We had been looking at the Dolphins as a potential easy mark for the Commanders. No, the Dolphins are looking at the Commanders as the easy mark. And we are all marks for being fans of this team. Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. President Donald Trump, he was at the Commanders' loss to the Lions. He wants the Commanders to name their new stadium after him. I will address this at length coming up in a bit. But coming up over the next 2 segments, in-depth reaction to and analysis of the Commanders' loss to the Lions. Next segment, discussion of this latest putrid performance by the Commanders' defense. Has defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. been fired yet? I don't know. I haven't checked X in the last 30 seconds. Probably should do that before I'm done recording this segment. The following segment, why quarterback Jayden Daniels should not be shut down for the rest of the season, and conversation about the work of the Commanders' offense and Commanders' special teams in this loss to the Lions. I actually thought that quarterback Marcus Mariota played well. Also on the show, I'll talk college football, Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. As never forget, this is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. We in college football over the weekend had a 5th consecutive loss for Maryland. Is Terrapins head coach Mike Locksley as good as fired at this point? Who's going to hold on to his job longer, Joe Witt or Mike Locksley? Also, we had a 7th consecutive win for James Madison, which now is ranked. Another loss for the Caps. They in their lone game over the weekend lost at the Tampa Bay Lightning 3-2 on Saturday night as the Caps continue to dominate puck possession but continue to struggle on special teams. 2 losses for our rebuilding and tanking Wizards over the weekend. Friday night, a 148-115 loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers at Capital One Arena in a game for which the NBA initially got the final score wrong. Saturday night, a 111-105 loss to the Dallas Mavericks at Capital One Arena in a game in which Wizards head coach Brian Keefe, by his own admission, made a major mistake. And we have a lot to get to with college basketball. Georgetown's impressive 70-60 win at Maryland on Friday evening, and wins for Virginia Tech and Virginia on the backs of quality international bigs. The Hokies and Cavaliers have imported some big-time talent for this season. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Lots of feedback on the Commanders' loss to the Lions from Zim on X. Right, Zim. 4 straight losses of more than 20 points. Zorn, nor Ron, nor Spurrier, nor Jay had that. So many things wrong. Thank you for that, Zim. From Joseph Collins on X, writes Joseph, watching this defense play, it feels like we only have 7 players on the field. The front four is nowhere to be seen. Thank you for that, Joseph. Yes, it is 11-on-7 when the Commanders' defense is on the field. From John on X. Writes John, I heard Snyder bought the team back 4 weeks ago. Thank you for that, John. From Paul on X. Writes Paul, the Skins aren't good, man. Never have been. Never will be. Oh, thank you for that, Paul. Well, there were the 1971 through 1977 seasons and the 1982 through 1992 seasons. Never have been good, no. Have barely been good for decades now, yes. That is true. From Matthew Alexander on X, writes Matthew, not sure how to cheer for Washington right now. There is nothing good. Thank you for that, Matthew. From J. Russell Finch on X, writes J. Russell, hard to see any wins the rest of the way. Thank you for that, J. Russell. Well, the Dolphins are favored over the Commanders, so it is quite possible that the Commanders will not be favored in another game this season. Email from Ryder, writes Ryder, hey Al, I hope by the time you're reading this, Witt has been fired. He has called games from the box and the field, but he should watch the rest of these games from his couch. Sure, we have some injuries, but schematically, this defense has been pitiful. Witt will get most of the hate from the fan base, but Cliff deserves some criticism too, starting with the ball the past 2 weeks just to go 3 and out with and without Jayden. Inability to move the football on offense exposes how bad the defense really is. Once we get scored on, the defense is right back on the field because we can't move the ball on offense. Let's start looking at mock drafts. HTTC. Thank you for the email, writer. Maybe moving forward, instead of discussing Commanders news and press conferences and stats, I should just be previewing the 2026 NFL Draft. Maybe that, from a content standpoint, is the way I need to be going. Early detection and treatment of skin cancer save lives. A great supporter of this podcast, Dr. George Verghese. He is one of the nation's premier dermatologists, and operating under his direction is the Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland, which has locations in Waldorf, Maryland, Leonardtown, Maryland, and Lexington Park, Maryland. The Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland focuses on medical skin care, cosmetic procedures, and skin cancer diagnosis and comprehensive care. Dr. Verghese and the Institute offer free skin cancer screenings to anyone considered a new patient, and Dr. Verghese and the Institute offer advanced treatments for skin cancer, including painless and scarless skin cancer treatment. Call 301-396-3401 or visit midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Dr. Verghese and the Institute can help you or someone who you care about with any of your dermatological needs. If you're dealing with allergic reactions, if you're dealing with acne, psoriasis, or eczema, if you're interested in procedures like Botox, laser hair removal, chemical peels, or smart lipo, which is the latest in body sculpting technology, call 301-396-3401 or visit midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's 301-396-3401 or midatlanticskin.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. For excellent and comprehensive skincare, contact Dr. George Verghese and the Mid-Atlantic Skin Surgery Institute of Maryland and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. We are in the midst of one of the ugliest stretches in Washington Commanders franchise history, and that's saying something because our team has had a lot of ugliness over the last few decades. But this 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday was the Commanders' fifth consecutive loss, with each of the last 4 losses being by at least 21 points. Each of the last 4 losses has been a blowout loss. October 19th, a 44-22 loss at the Dallas Cowboys. October 27th, a 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. November 2nd, a 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football. And now November 9th, a 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium. 44-22. That was the final score of the Commanders' loss at the Cowboys on October 19th. That was the final score of the Commanders' loss to the Lions on Sunday. Here's how bad things are right now. If I say to you the Commanders lost with a final score of 44-22, you have to say, which one? Because there has been more than one. The Commanders in the NFL's 2025 regular season now are 3-7 with a point differential of minus 57. That is the second worst point differential in the NFC. Only the 2-8 New Orleans Saints point differential is worse, minus 95. We by now all understand what has happened in this Commanders season that has gone terribly wrong. On last Thursday's show, episode 1193, ranked the reasons for the team's disappointing season like this. Number one, injuries. Number two, and this is tied to number one, but a roster that isn't good enough or deep enough to withstand an above average amount of injuries, and included in this reason is the team being old. Number three, a brutal schedule featuring a brutal slate of opposing quarterbacks. Number four, bad turnover luck. Number five, expected regression on offense in third down efficiency and fourth down efficiency, each of which tends to fluctuate season to season. These five reasons are tangible, crystal clear reasons for the Commanders' disappointing season. The wild card reason to me is coaching, and I say wild card reason because it's hard to say how much coaching has been a problem, but it is entirely possible, if not probable, that coaching on defense has been a big problem because the defense has been a big problem. Now, three more Commanders defensive players got injured/dealt with injury on Sunday. Cornerback Trey Amos was knocked out of the game due to an ankle injury that he suffered in the second quarter. Cornerback Jonathan Jones dealt with a groin injury, and linebacker Ale Kahu was knocked out of the game via a concussion on the opening kickoff of the second half. Additionally, notable Commanders defensive players on the reserve/injured list include edge defenders Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise Jr., and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, and safety Will Harris. But the injuries do not excuse how horrendous the defense has been or how atrocious the defense was on Sunday. This was a special kind of bad that was on display on Sunday. This was one of the most incompetent, gutless, unhinged, pathetic defensive performances in franchise history. I am sympathetic to the injuries. I am. I acknowledge that the defense just concluded a 4-game stretch against a murderer's row of opposing quarterbacks in Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff. But still, these things do not excuse the defense being this bad. What happened on Sunday was embarrassing. The Commanders allowed the Lions to score 44 points, generate 546 total net yards of offense, average 8.03 yards per play, and go 5 for 10 on third downs and 2 for 2 on fourth downs. And regarding the 8.03 yards per play, a really good yards per play is 6. The Lions averaged 8.03 yards per play, and that yards per play was approaching 9 until late in the fourth quarter. Garbage time helped to whittle down the Lions' yards per play to 8.03. The Commanders got shredded by Lions quarterback Jared Goff. He went 25 for 33 for 320 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The Commanders had no sacks, did have 5 quarterback hits, but Goff had his way with the Commanders' defense. The Commanders' run defense was terrible. They allowed Lions running backs Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Sione Vaki, and receiver Khalif Raymond to combine for 32 carries for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. How about the extent to which the Commanders got worked by Gibbs? They allowed him to have 15 carries for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns, and to have 3 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. So the Commanders had no takeaways, leaving the team with a mere 6 takeaways over 10 games in this regular season. But maybe worst of all, the Commanders' defense lost control of itself. The Commanders' defense became unhinged. This was such a bad look. Lack of maturity, lack of leadership, and this happened with defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. where? On the sideline. You can't make this stuff up. His first game of having moved from being in the team's coach's booth to being on the team's sideline, and with him on the sideline, the defense lost control of its emotions. Take it to the Lions' third offensive drive. On a 2nd and 10 for the Lions at the Commanders' 18 with 9:55 left in the second quarter, interior defensive lineman Jayden Daniels committed a 5-yard defensive offside penalty, and he, after the snap, inexplicably was talking trash to Jared Goff. That looked so ridiculous with the defense playing as poorly as it was. And then came the nightmare play. On a 2nd and 5 for the Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs had a 13-yard I-formation handoff touchdown run with 9:41 left in the second quarter, and Gibbs got pushed across the goal line by multiple teammates to conclude a humiliating run against the Commanders' defense. And cornerback Trey Amos suffered an ankle injury on the play and was done for the game. And linebacker Frankie Louvu got hurt on the play, but he did return to the game. And interior defensive lineman Daron Payne, after the play, got ejected for throwing a punch at Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yes, big money Daron Payne, a supposed veteran leader. He got himself ejected from the game. And the Lions went for 2 and got it on a shotgun handoff run by David Montgomery. And Jayden Daniels committed a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that was enforced between downs as he made contact with an official's hat. Completely unhinged. Completely off the rails. Enough bad things cannot be said about the Commanders' defense during this stretch. We, during head coach Dan Quinn's post-game press conference on Sunday night, had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Quinn.
You saw some frustrations boil over on the field with Ron and Kinlaw. What were your vantage points of those incidents, and how do you keep that from spilling over into the locker room?
Yeah. It wasn't like spilling over into the locker room. It was more like, I get the frustration, but we've got to find a way to channel our frustration, better or different than that, like a penalties or an actions that, hurt our team. That part, it obviously addressed it hard at halftime about our poise and what it's got to look like and where it goes. And so to see that happen, okay, that's good. But I don't know what the difference in penalties, all those things, man, that can't happen. We're margins are here. And so when you make it harder, that takes away from it. So the frustration is not an excuse, I guess, that I'm trying to say, Nikki.
You worried about the team fracturing, given, just the overall frustration of losing?
No, I worry about the emotion of it, but not fracture. They're tight, they're connected, the work's there. Frustration, visibly upset, just why isn't going, like we want it to. And that's kind of what I was referring to with David earlier a little bit about. It's not the worst thing to go together right now. And, it's kind of like not going away to camp, but going away. All right, let's talk through, find these spaces. And it might be these small things that we need to do differently that can add to it. Everybody's searching. We're frustrated, players, coaches, everyone. But ultimately, like I said, first things first, man, just into this week. What can we do better, heading into this game? And then breathe and, okay, next set. And then I'll go from there.
So the Daron Payne ejection especially bothered me. That just cannot happen. Jayden Daniels, during his post-game session with reporters, did say that he saw Amon-Ra St. Brown hit Daron Payne first. Okay, but still, Payne has got to be smarter, has got to be more mature. The player with the highest salary cap number for the Commanders this season per overthecap.com is Daron Payne, $26.17 million. He is a big money player. Him getting ejected from a game is unacceptable. And so what now? I mean, we've had this conversation so many times with this defense this season already. What now? What do you do next? What change could be coming? Is Joe Witt about to be fired? Is he about to be stripped of defensive play calling duties? Is somebody else about to be fired? We, during Dan Quinn's post-game press conference on Sunday night, had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
Dan, you've tried different things to fix that defense. None of it has worked. How do you explain that, and how baffled are you by what's going on?
Yeah, we're all obviously disappointed, like just execution, not creating takeaways, the ones to go. And I think, over why you're seeing that, that's definitely frustrated, and we all are. Baffled, frustrated, all of that, all those emotions, John, it's accurate. So we got to channel that, into finding the things that we can do well and play that. Because when we can't, it's, too easy, too difficult, too easy for us, or too difficult, too easy for them, whatever that looks like. But play style, identity, all that, it feels off.
Then what other changes can you even make when you look at that D, whether it's personnel, staff? Are there more things that you can do at this point? Yeah, I understand you have to ask that. I'm honestly, post-game, I'm not there yet, want to have thoughtful, answers and decisions and personnel. But like I said, I understand you have to ask that, but I'm not there yet to figure it out. So I got a lot to look at tonight as we get into the week, and we have, this game and then a bye. We got to put everything we can into this week to make sure we can play like we're capable, fix some of these issues. And so to me, that's kind of where my tunnel vision is of start with that.
All right, so at least according to Dan Quinn right there, doesn't sound like any firings are happening just yet. More on that during Quinn's post-game press conference on Sunday night. Had this back and forth between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Quinn.
Season's different, and this team's different from last year's team. I just wonder, though, there's still a lot of guys that were here last year.
Yes.
And I just wonder how stunned you are that you all are so far away from where you were last season in terms of not just the results, but just the way you were playing.
Yeah, we definitely are. That's why, the frustration, man, I get that. And it's not an excuse. We got to find a way to channel that frustration, like you saw at the end of the half, penalties and actions, we can't have it. It's all coming from that, from the frustration, the angst, that feeling, the darkness of it all. No one saw that, obviously, coming, DA, about where we're at. But I also told him, that's the chapter in. That's where we are, and we have to be the ones to get it out. I'm not saying it's going to go, this much better, but it has to be. And we're the ones to go do that. We got to be the ones to dig it out. And that's why I kind of just want everything I can into this game, this moment, and see what we can go get better at. That's what we'll do.
Planned out Spain for probably months.
Yep.
I just wonder, do you think about changing anything just because of where you are right now?
No, just the opposite. I'm feeling fortunate that we are hitting the road tonight together. Sometimes when you're going through it, you need everybody together. You talk about it and what's the thing you can do better and you can do. And so if all of us start collectively thinking that way together, it forces you to do that. And so we got a good group, man. You don't want, you have to have these standards that you go to, but this is where we're at. And so we got to fix it together and solutions. And so by them doing that together, it's fortunate that we're in this time. If we hadn't, I wish could we move it up to go and spend as much as we can to get answers, solutions. The practice and the preparation, I thought last week hit the mark. The performance didn't. So there's more to it. It's not where are we missing? Where are we missing? There's a gap that's taken place, and that's, like I said, it's everybody.
I tell you, even the biggest Commanders pessimist never expected their 2025 season to unravel like it has. We thought/hoped that the defense would be better, but even if you had your doubts, did you expect this? I mean, this right now is tracking toward being one of the worst defenses in the history of the franchise. And the harsh reality is that there just may not be a fix this season. We may have to suffer through 7 more, good God, wretched defensive performances until the team gets to the offseason. Again, I am sympathetic with the injuries, and I am understanding of the brutal schedule, but those things do not excuse the awful defense that this team is putting forth. During Dan Quinn's postgame press conference on Sunday night, had this exchange between Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4 and Quinn.
understanding it's post-game and then you're on a plane in 24 hours. When that bye week does hit, how do you plan to look at kind of big picture stuff then, and what all will that entail?
Yeah, you want to start and say, okay, what are the things featuring the players, put them in the best spots they can do their thing. Have a sense for who will be back after that, but that will be a factor eventually. But in the meantime, how do we look at, just finding ways to improve? And that is number one, top of the pile. That means shifting people, personnel, more scheme of this, less of that, everything's on the table. But in the next 6 days, man, it's just lock in for this. And then while the guys get that break coming back, that's the staff part to say, okay, from the view up top, no bias. It looks bad. Why are we not hitting the right spots? And leave that aside to say, this is what it has to look like moving forward. And so that's kind of the headspace I'm in. I'm not there to the bye yet, but that's my focus this week. But there's a process to go through during that one, and ours will be more lengthy than usual. But in the meantime, it's short-term solutions for this week to get it better.
All right, Nova Fireplace and Stove. It is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for fireplaces. Transform the look and feel of your home and increase its value by visiting Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or by visiting NovaFireplaceandStove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Come in and see Nova Fireplace and Stove's stunning displays, including custom fireplace glass doors and stone refacing options that can completely transform the look of your fireplace. From sleek and modern to rustic and cozy, Nova Fireplace and Stove has something for every style. And here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacements and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed and insured company with over-the-top credentials, gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Every job includes a free in-home estimate, and for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention this ad. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. That's Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or NovaFireplaceandStove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Nova Fireplace and Stove, where comfort meets craftsmanship, and your fireplace becomes the heart of your home. More now on the Washington Commanders' 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday to fall to 3-7 in the NFL's 2025 regular season. So what now with the Commanders' QB1, Jayden Daniels? He for this game was inactive due to the dislocated left elbow that he suffered in the Commanders' 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football on November 2nd. We last Monday, November 3rd, learned that Daniels had not suffered a fracture. We this past Friday, November 7th, learned that Daniels had not suffered serious ligament damage and did not need to undergo surgery. He still has not been placed on the reserve/injured list. Head coach Dan Quinn, during his post-practice press conference this past Friday, said to look for an update on Daniels after the team's Week 12 bye. Here was NFL insider Ian Rappaport of NFL Network on NFL Network's The Insiders on Friday with NFL insider Tom Pelissero of NFL Network.
Yeah, here's my understanding of Jayden Daniels' medical situation. After consulting with some of the nation's experts, and really this is something that took several opinions and several days, the determination was made. Surgery is not necessary. That is a good sign. Limited to no ligament damage. That is a good sign. Look, anytime you dislocate an elbow, there's going to be something there, but nothing that requires surgery, nothing major. Truly amazing and excellent news for Jayden Daniels. Also not expected to be placed immediately on injured reserve. That is also a very good sign. What we know, and really what we've known, Tom, since the beginning of the week, is that Marcus Mariota is going to start this game, going to start the next game, and then there is the bye. And at that point, bringing Jayden Daniels back at least comes to the forefront, becomes a possibility. There's the medical part of it, which is what I just explained. And then there's the actual coaching decision, organizational decision part of it. If the Commanders' record is such that there is no chance at anything, does bringing your franchise quarterback back at less than 100% make sense? That is a decision that Adam Peters, Josh Harris, and Dan Quinn are all going to have to make. If they are in the hunt, if there's stuff to play for, and he is capable of coming back, then sure, he is going to come back. The best news, though, he is going to be okay. It's just all the other decisions revolving around the Commanders are going to have to be made over the next several weeks, Tom.
Okay, for the record, I am not in the camp of Jayden Daniels should be shut down for the rest of the season. If he, after the bye, is healthy enough to play, then I want him to play. Now, I want him and the team to be smart about his play, but I'm not a fan of him just being shut down for the rest of the season, no matter what. I get that this has become a lost season for our team, but Daniels is in just his second season as an NFL quarterback. He needs reps. He needs work. He's not a finished product. Now, if he's not ready to play until, say, week 17 or week 18, then okay, maybe it's not worth bringing him back to play in just one game or two games. But otherwise, I'm not a fan of just ending his season when he has played in just 6 games in this regular season. Way too few. He is not some veteran quarterback like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Matthew Stafford, who's basically a finished product. Daniel still needs to be developed. Meantime, if the Commanders' defense had not been so bad, this game on Sunday maybe possibly could have been a game because the Commanders' passing offense was good. Marcus Mariota was the Commanders' starting quarterback for the 4th time in 10 games in this regular season, and Mariota played well. You know, it's tricky to evaluate how he played because so much of the game was garbage time, okay? But Mariota, to me, did well. He completed 16 of his 22 pass attempts. That works out to a completion percentage of 72.73. Mariota threw for 213 yards. He had a yards per pass attempt of 9.68 and a yards per completion of 13.31. He aggressively threw downfield, had a 41-yard completion to receiver Jalen Lane, had a 37-yard completion to receiver Traylon Burks. Nice game for him, by the way, 3 receptions for 58 yards on 3 targets. Mariota had a 30-yard completion to tight end Zach Ertz. A nice game for Ertz, 4 receptions for 54 yards on 5 targets. Mariota had 2 touchdown passes versus no interceptions. A 1 touchdown pass was to receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. He had 4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets. So the other touchdown pass was to tight end Ben Sinnott. Yes, we had a Ben Sinnott sighting in this game. He had 1 reception for 4 yards and a touchdown on 1 target. Mariota quarterbacked the Commanders offense that went 3 for 3 on 4th downs, 4th and 1 for the Commanders at the Lions 14 with 5:05 left in the second quarter. Mariota had an 8-yard shotgun completion to Zach Ertz, who held on to the ball despite taking a wicked shot from defensive back Avonte Maddox. Mariota had 5 carries for 22 yards. He took just 2 sacks. Did quarterback a Commanders offense that went just 2 for 10 on 3rd downs, but especially considering the depleted nature of the team at the skill positions and that the running game was nothing special, I thought that Mariota played well. Remember, notable Commanders offensive players on the reserve/injured list are receivers Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey and running back Austin Eckler, and the team's number 1 receiver, Terry McLaurin, remains out. He, for a second consecutive game, was inactive due to a quadriceps that he re-injured in the Commanders' 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th. The McLaurin in that game returned from a 4-game absence caused by the quadriceps injury. We did see the QB3, Josh Johnson, in the 4th quarter. He executed 3 handoffs on a 3-and-out drive, what was the Commanders' final offensive drive. And you had to laugh, right? Head coach Dan Quinn learning a lesson from having kept Jayden Daniels in the game in the 4th quarter of that loss to the Seahawks too long. As for the Commanders' rushing offense in this loss to the Lions, running backs Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Jeremy McNichols combined for 22 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown. Rodriguez did start over Krosky-Merritt, but Rodriguez during the game dealt with a shoulder injury, and so Krosky-Merritt wound up with more carries. Krosky-Merritt for the game, 11 carries for 30 yards. Rodriguez, 6 carries for 16 yards. Jeremy McNichols, 5 carries carries for 25 yards. But bottom line, once again, the Commanders' rushing offense did not do much. The passing offense, though, overall, I thought was good. Marcus Mariota, he did a post-game press conference on Sunday night. The presser began with this back and forth between Commanders insider J.P. Finley of NBC4 and Mariota.
Marcus, offensively, you guys were able to do some good things out there, but coming on the wrong side of this again, what's the feeling in that locker room?
For us, I think everyone's frustrated, upset, which I think those are emotions that you want to feel at this point. Like, nobody's in there giving up at all. But at the same time, like, we have to figure this out, and we got to get it right. Bobby stood up and said something at halftime, and I really appreciate the fact that he led us and said, hey, this is on us. We have to figure it out. It's not just offense. It's not just defense. It's not just special teams. It's on everybody. And at the end of the day, like I said, going into this game, like, I believe in the guys in this locker room. But we have to figure out what it is and what these details are. If we're missing the lack of execution, it takes all of us. So regardless of where we are, at the end of the day, doesn't matter who we're playing, it's on us and how we got to figure out together how we can get this right.
What was DQ's message after the game, knowing you guys are headed to Europe?
Yeah, he basically was very much the same way that I feel and kind of what I said, but also, like, it's a interesting time for our team, and I think it's in a good time to go as a team together early, where we can all kind of sit down and be together for the next 7 days and figure out how we can get this right. So it's interesting how the schedule kind of played out that way, but I do feel like this is a good opportunity for us to, one, figure out who we are and who we want to be, and two, like, just to get this thing right.
All right. Also from Marcus Mariota during his post-game press conference on Sunday night was a really interesting quote. Quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are." End quote. Let that sink in. I don't think we are who we think we are. Here was where that came from. First, an exchange between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Mariota, and then an exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Mariota.
Marcus, how far away does it feel from being the team that you think you're capable of being?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I don't feel real close. And at the same time, though, day in and day out, I see guys coming in, giving it their all. So I do feel like we have the motivation, the determination to get this right. But we're running out of games and we're running out of time. So there has to be a sense of urgency, which I do believe there is in the locker room, and we'll figure it out.
How surprised are you that we're sitting here and you're, after 10 games, that you're still saying you still have to figure out who you guys are and what you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should shy away from that. I think that's the truth. And I think that's transparency. And at the end of the day, in order to get things going in the right direction, you have to be transparent, you have to be honest. And I don't think we are who we think we are. So with that being said, it's a quick turnaround. It's a trip to Europe. It's an opportunity for us to kind of dive in together. I believe in this brotherhood. I believe in the guys in the locker room. But like I said, there's got to be a sense of urgency, and I think our guys feel that.
Yeah, so how about that? Quote, "I don't think we are who we think we are." End quote. That's telling. All right, Commander special teams in this loss to the Lions. Kicker Matt Gay went 1 for 1 on field goals and 1 for 1 on extra points. He connected on a 44-yard field goal with 5:43 left in the first quarter. But regarding the extra point, how about the Commanders committing a 5-yard delay of game penalty just prior to Gay's extra point with 3:39 left in the second quarter? I mean, come on, right? How bad was that? How sloppy was that a 5-yard delay of game penalty as you're getting ready to boot an extra point. The punter, Tress Way, he had another outstanding game. Way over 4 punts, averaged 50 yards per punt and 49.3 net yards per punt. So at least we have our punter and our punt coverage team, which is really good. The Lions did not need their punter or their punt coverage team. The Lions did not punt the entire game. And yet another indignity for the Commanders' defense. So we did have a bunch of kickoffs by the Lions in this game. Cornerback Noah Igbenogany was the Commanders' primary kickoff returner. He over 7 kickoff returns, averaged 27.29 yards per return. Igbenogany had a 46-yard kickoff return in the first quarter. The Commanders did block an extra point attempt. That was good. Interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton blocked an extra point attempt by Lions kicker Jake Bates with 12:50 left in the fourth quarter. And there also was this. Safety Quan Martin committed a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on a 22-yard field goal by Jake Bates with 11 seconds left in the second quarter. Now, this happened on special teams, but you certainly could argue that this falls under the category of the Commanders' defense becoming unhinged, as we discussed earlier. But man, Commanders' defensive players in the second quarter, ridiculous.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file, Abbott Diabetes Care, per prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Well, as divided as we are politically in this country, there are two things about the current president of this country, Donald J. Trump, that most people, regardless of how they feel about him, would admit are true. A, he has a big ego. B, you never know with Trump. Whether you hate Trump's guts or are MAGA for life, you have to admit that these two things are true. A, he has a big ego. Heck, he himself has joked about that. And B, you never know with Trump. Even people who work for him and very much believe in him will concede that. And so, given these two realities, we should not be surprised that he wants the Washington Commanders' next stadium to be named after him. The stadium being built on the RFK Stadium land in Washington, D.C., the stadium for which the hope is that it'll be ready for the Commanders' 2030 season. The stadium for which we had a decade-plus long saga. That stadium, Trump wants it to be named after him. Donald Trump was at the Commanders' 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium on Sunday. He sat in the owner's box with Commanders managing partner Josh Harris. Trump, during the third quarter, appeared on the Fox telecast of the game, was talking with play-by-play announcer Kenny Albert and analyst Jonathan Vilma, who kept trying to do the 6'7" joke, and it was not funny. He was trying way too hard. What was funny was that Trump seemed to think that the broadcast was the Commanders' broadcast for the game. Did you notice that? Trump talked to Albert and Vilma like they were Commanders broadcasters. I got a kick out of that. We on Friday learned that Trump would be at this game, said Commanders team president Mark Klaus in a statement that was issued on Friday afternoon. Quote, "We are honored to welcome President Trump to the game as we celebrate those who have served and continued to serve our country. The entire Commanders organization is proud to participate in the NFL's league-wide Salute to Service initiative, recognizing the dedication and sacrifice of our nation's veterans, active duty service members, and their families this Sunday," end quote. As you likely know, this Tuesday, November 11th, is Veterans Day. Trump, during halftime, read the oath of enlistment. We late in the first half had Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown doing the Trump dance. Did you catch that? Amon-Ra St. Brown, while celebrating his 9-yard touchdown reception with 1:54 left in the second quarter, did the Trump dance. The news that Trump was going to be at Commanders Lions was big enough, right? That news on Friday got a lot of attention, but that news on Friday paled in comparison to the news on Saturday morning. We on Saturday morning had a report from ESPN senior writer Don Van Natta Jr. and ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter saying that Trump wants the Commanders to name their new stadium after him. Read the report, quote, President Donald Trump wants the Washington Commanders to name their planned $3.7 billion stadium after him. Multiple sources with knowledge of the situation told ESPN. A senior White House source said there have been back-channel communications with a member of the Commanders ownership group, led by Josh Harris, to express Trump's desire to have the Dome Stadium in the nation's capital bear his name. The new stadium is being built on the old RFK Stadium site that served as the team's home from 1991 to 1996, end quote. And if you're wondering whether this news is being denied by Trump, well, the report was not at all denied by Team Trump, said White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in an email to ESPN on Friday night, quote, that would be a beautiful name, as it was President Trump who made the rebuilding of the new stadium possible, end quote. And if you know Caroline Leavitt, you know that she's not shy about pushing back on reporting about Trump or about ripping the media. She, in this case, did neither. She simply endorsed the idea of the Commanders' next stadium being named after Trump. The report from ESPN also included quite the anonymous quote a senior White House source told ESPN regarding the Commanders' new stadium being named after Trump, quote, it's what the president wants, and it will probably happen, end quote. How about that? Donald Trump Stadium, the Washington Commanders versus the Dallas Cowboys this Sunday afternoon at 4:25 at Donald Trump Stadium. How does that sound? Maybe he would prefer the initials DJT, a la RFK Stadium for Robert F. Kennedy Stadium. The Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles at DJT Stadium this Sunday night at 8:20. Well, before people get too crazy, I do think that Trump forcing the Commanders to name their next stadium after him is unlikely, and I believe that for several reasons. Reason number one, what I mentioned earlier, you never know with Trump. Maybe he's super serious about the Commanders naming their next stadium after him. Maybe he's going to prove to be ultra committed and ultra insistent on the Commanders naming their next stadium after him. But maybe he drops this or forgets about this in 5 minutes, okay? I mean, it's Trump. Again, you never know with Trump. I have watched plenty of his sessions with reporters since he began his second term as president. He, during every one of these sessions, says so many things about so many things. What he truly means versus what he actually doesn't mean. What he's saying because he plans to do it versus what he's saying for negotiating purposes. What he's saying out of genuine, lasting conviction versus what he's saying out of a spur-of-the-moment belief. What he's serious about versus what he's joking about. You never know. You never know with Trump. With Trump, today's outrage can be tomorrow's forgotten topic. And so who the heck knows how serious about and committed to he is to the Commanders naming their next stadium after him. Reason number two to believe that Trump forcing the Commanders to name their next stadium after him is unlikely. Money, though not for Trump. But Donald Trump at his core is a businessman. The idea with the Commanders' next stadium, quite clearly, is for it to have a naming rights deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The stadium being named after Trump could seriously derail a naming rights deal, because why would you as a company want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to not have exclusivity with the name? Like, yeah, you could do something like Donald Trump Field at Corporate Sponsor Stadium or Corporate Sponsor Field at Donald Trump Stadium, but either name would be very lengthy and clunky, and the corporate sponsor would be overshadowed by the Trump name. The stadium is projected to cost close to $4 billion, and a lot of it is being paid for by the Josh Harris Group. It very much wants a mega money naming rights deal for this stadium. I promise you, Josh Harris doesn't want anything that could jeopardize such a deal, and you'd think / hope that Trump would be sympathetic to that, given his background. By the way, Josh Harris is a lot richer than Donald Trump is. Did you know that? Trump per Forbes has a real-time net worth of $6.6 billion. Harris per Forbes has a real-time net worth of $10.9 $2.9 billion. I find that interesting. But the ESPN piece also included this, quote, the Commanders own the new stadium's naming rights, presumably to be sold to a corporate sponsor, but a source with firsthand knowledge of the process said that would be a separate decision from also commemorating an individual in the stadium name. That decision would likely rest with the District of Columbia Council, which will lease the stadium to the Commanders, and the National Park Service, which manages the federal government land on the old RFK Stadium site, where the new stadium will be built in time for its scheduled opening in 2030, end quote. Well, I can promise you that the D.C. Council would not want the stadium to be named after Trump. I mean, let's just bottom line this, okay? D.C. is as blue as any part of this country, right? I mean, there is no loyalty on the planet as fierce as D.C.'s loyalty to the Democrat Party. The breakdown in terms of popular vote in D.C. for the 2024 presidential election was 6.47% for Trump and 90.28% for Kamala Harris. 6.47% for Trump, 90.28% for Kamala Harris. You are more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to find a citizen of D.C. who's a Republican. So yeah, the D.C. Council probably would not be on the side of the Commanders' new stadium being named after Donald Trump. Reason number 3 to believe that Trump forcing the Commanders to name their next stadium after him is unlikely. Him doing this would be classic overreach by the federal government, and that is something that Republicans are supposed to be very much against. This goes back to what Trump said about the name issue. Remember that? Trump this past July 20th, over multiple posts on Truth Social, called for the Commanders to go back to being the Redskins, including a post in which he threatened to derail the team's next stadium being on the RFK Stadium site in D.C. And what I talked about at the time was that him doing that would be antithetical to being anti-big government. You'll notice that he since then has said little to nothing about the Commanders' name issue. Again, with Trump, today's outrage can be tomorrow's forgotten topic. But, Trump technically is a Republican, not a traditional Republican, but a Republican. Republicans, traditionally right, are anti-big government. Him doing this, forcing a private entity to name something regarding that entity after him, that is the kind of overreach that Republicans traditionally are against. Reason number 4 to believe that Trump forcing the Commanders to name their next stadium after him is unlikely. His current term as president ends in January 2029. The target first season for the Commanders in the stadium is 2030, so the stadium will be opening more than a year after he's out of office. So there, to me, are a number of reasons to believe that Trump forcing the Commanders to name their next stadium after him is unlikely. But look, Trump can make things difficult for the Commanders with the new stadium. There's no doubt about that. And this portion of the ESPN piece really stood out. A source with knowledge of the Commanders' deal for the stadium told ESPN that Trump, quote, has plenty of leverage, end quote, to get the stadium to be named after him. Quote, he has cards to play. He can make it very difficult through government environmental approvals and other things to make sure everyone who wants this stadium to be built will join to put his name on it. Trump has plenty of cards to play to get his way, end quote. Boy, those would be some nasty things to do to get the Commanders to name their stadium after him. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. Time now to talk college football. We just had week 11 of the 2025 season. We on Saturday had 5 of the 7 FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region in action. Just one of those teams won, and that team was not Maryland. The Terrapins fell to 4-5 overall, including 1-5 in the Big Ten, with a 35-20 loss at Rutgers on Saturday. The Terps lost their 5th consecutive game since a 4-0 start, and at this point, Mike Locksley appears all but done as Terps head coach. Barring some miraculous surge to end the season, he would seem to be as good as gone, especially considering that Maryland has a new director of athletics, right? Maryland, this past May 15th, announced the hiring of James E. Smith as director of athletics. He had been serving as the senior vice president of business strategy for the Atlanta Braves, but the program under Locksley just is not progressing. I don't know how you argue otherwise at this point. The Terps on Saturday blew a 17-14 second quarter lead. They lost the rest of the game at 21-3. Maryland's defense, which had been doing well, got shredded for a second consecutive game. Now, the defense is banged up, but still, the Terps allowed Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliak-Manis to go 13 for 20 for 229 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a yards per pass attempt of 11.45 and a yards per completion of 17.62. He quarterbacked a Rutgers offense that went 8 for 12 on third downs. The Terps did have 2 interceptions, but the Terps totaled just 1 sack, and the Terps allowed Rutgers running back Antoine Raymond to have 41 carries for 240 yards and a touchdown. Maryland had an odd game offensively. The Terps averaged 7.07 yards per play, which is great, but they went just 4 for 12 on third downs. The Terps generated 403 total net yards of offense, but just 98 of those yards were passing yards. So the Terps, whose rushing offense had been abysmal all season, had 305 total net yards rushing, though 126 of those yards came over just 2 carries. Maryland true freshman quarterback Malik Washington, bad game as a passer, terrific game as a runner. He had 8 carries for 164 yards and a touchdown, including a 2nd and 8, 73-yard shotgun touchdown run with 14:23 left in the first quarter. His 164 rushing yards were the second most by a Maryland quarterback in a game ever and set a school record for rushing yards by a freshman quarterback in a game. But Washington completed just 15 of his 28 pass attempts, threw for just 98 yards, and had 1 touchdown pass versus 1 interception. He did take no sacks. He this season has been excellent at avoiding sacks, but his accuracy is a problem, and he's just not getting better as a passer. Maryland running back Nolan Ray, he had 5 carries for 77 yards, including a 53-yard run. There was talk that Maryland might fire Mike Locksley on Sunday. That did not happen, but it sure seems like the firing is coming at some point soon. We, during Locksley's post-game session with reporters on Saturday evening, had this exchange.
Coach, you're now tied with Rutgers since the start of 2020, fewest wins in conference play in the Big Ten. Just from your perspective, how do you evaluate where this program is at, and what do you tell the fans who are frustrated?
I'm not going to evaluate us right now. I'm sorry. Beat me at the end of the season. I'll have an end of season review for you. I'm playing for Illinois, I think it is, next week, and I'm not into the evaluation of us as a program with 3 games left to play. I'm in to tell you I'm going to keep showing up with a positive attitude because this team deserves it, and I'm going to tell you that this team will play with pride the next 3 games. We'll keep trying to build on some of the things we're doing well, the things we aren't, including getting some guys healthy. That's been the main thought process. We'll deal with the end of the season at the end of the season.
Yeah, well, the end of the season is coming. It was interesting to me, by the way, that Mike Locksley, during his post-game session with reporters on Saturday evening, was bringing up the Terps being young. He had not been doing that. He actually had been pushing against that, but he, during this post-game session with reporters on Saturday evening, very much did that. He realizes what is happening here. These appear to be the dying days of his tenure as Maryland head coach. Next up for Maryland at Illinois Saturday afternoon at at 3:30. Navy fell to 7-2 overall with a 49-10 loss at number 10 Notre Dame on a rainy and then snowy Saturday night in South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame is the number 10 team in the FBS per the season's first college football playoff rankings, which came out this past Tuesday night. Navy's QB1 Blake Horvath did not play. This due to an injury that he suffered in the midshipmen's 31-17 loss at North Texas on November 1st. Would have been nice to have known that going into the game. We did not. And so this ended up being a big-time mismatch. And Navy had just 228 total net yards of offense to Notre Dame's 502, averaged 4.15 yards per play to Notre Dame's 8.81, went just 3 for 11 on third downs to Notre Dame's 7 for 10, and went 0 for 1 on fourth downs to Notre Dame's 2 for 2. Navy starting quarterback was its QB2 Braxton Woodson. He struggled as a passer, did do well as a runner. Woodson went just 3 for 8 for just 22 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. He took 2 sacks, which totaled minus 14 yards in lost yardage. He had 21 carries for 115 yards and a touchdown when you take out the 2 sacks that he took. I wonder if Navy head coach Brian Newberry held Blake Horvath out of this game, what was an unlikely game for Navy to win, right? In order to have Horvath healthy for the stretch run. You got to wonder. Next up for Navy, home to USF Saturday at noon. Speaking of a QB1 being injured, Virginia is no longer unbeaten in ACC play. The number 14 Cavaliers fell to 8-2 overall, including 5-1 in the ACC, with a 16-9 loss to Wake Forest at Scott Stadium in Charlottesville, Virginia on Saturday night. Virginia is the number 14 team in the FBS per the season's first college football playoff rankings, which came out this past Tuesday night. Virginia for this game was the number 12 team in the FBS in the Associated Press Top 25 poll that came out on November 2nd, but UVA off this loss moved down to being the number 20 team in the FBS in the Associated Press Top 25 poll that came out on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, the Cavs fell 8 spots in the latest AP Top 25 poll. UVA's QB1, North Texas transfer Chandler Morris, he left this game against Wake Forest in the second quarter due to injury. The Cavs quarterback for the rest of the game was redshirt freshman Daniel Kalin. He went 18 for 28 for just 145 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. He took 2 sacks, each of which resulted in a lost fumble on a sack strip. He did have 4 carries for 61 yards when you take out the 2 sacks that he took. Wake Forest is outstanding defensively. The Demon Deacons for this season are number 5 in the FBS in defensive efficiency per ESPN. So UVA, which already isn't great offensively, losing its QB1 during this game, just a devastating blow given the opposition. UVA running back and North Carolina Central transfer Jamari Taylor, he had 19 carries for 98 yards and had 7 receptions for 30 yards on 8 targets, but he also had a lost fumble. UVA went just 3 for 14 on third downs. The defense was very good. The Wahoos held Wake Forest to just 203 total net yards of offense, just 3.17 yards per play, and just 5 for 17 on third downs, though we should acknowledge that Wake Forest is really bad offensively. The Demon Deacons for this season are 120th out of 136 FBS teams in offensive efficiency per ESPN. Disappointing loss for the Hoos. So during UVA head coach Tony Elliott's postgame press conference on Saturday night, had this exchange between Jeff White, director of news content for VirginiaSports.com, and Elliott.
Have you reminded your players what is still out there?
Oh, yeah. So I talked to them in the locker room, and I told them that all of our goals that we started the season with are still out there, right? We never had a goal that said we wanted to go undefeated in the ACC, right? Our goal is to win the conference championship and to win the state championship, and we still have an opportunity ahead of us with the next two ball games. So let's not let this beat us twice. Yeah, we got humble pie. I mean, coaches, players, all of us, we gotta own it. We gotta, go back to work, figure out where we can get better, and stay together because we still got everything ahead of us.
All right, next up for Virginia at Duke, Saturday afternoon at 3:30. Make it 7 consecutive wins for James Madison. The Dukes, who now are ranked. They improved to 8-1 overall, including 6-0 in the Sun Belt Conference, with a 35-23 win at Marshall on Saturday afternoon. James Madison, for the Associated Press Top 25 poll that came out on November 2nd, was number 2 among others receiving votes, and JMU is the number 24 team in the FBS in the Associated Press Top 25 poll that came out on Sunday afternoon. Congrats to the Dukes. JMU on Saturday afternoon won by 12 points despite having just 59 offensive plays to Marshall's 86, but JMU averaged 6.93 yards per play to Marshall's 4.81. JMU quarterback Alonzo Barnett III had a fourth consecutive impressive game. He completed just 14 of his 24 pass attempts, but he threw for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He had a yards per pass attempt of 11.25 and a yards per completion of 19.29. Outstanding. He took just 1 sack, which was for an 8-yard loss. Barnett had 11 carries for 40 yards when you take out the sack that he took. JMU running back Wayne Knight, he had 14 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown and had 4 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown. And JMU's defense, again, was good. The Dukes held Marshall to just the 4.81 yards per play and to just 6 for 17 on third downs. JMU for this season is number 27 in the FBS in defensive efficiency per ESPN. During JMU head coach Bob Chesney's post-game session with reporters on Saturday afternoon, had this exchange.
This today wraps up 4 straight weeks on national television. To be able to win the way you guys have at this time of the year, how big is it to be able to showcase just kind of to the nation what this program can do, especially with a lot of implications to go around?
Yeah, I think, we're going to play our brand of football, whether we're on a Tuesday and nobody's watching, or we're on a Saturday at high noon and everybody's watching, or we're Friday night. It doesn't matter really to us. We are excited to get out there and have that opportunity to play. But it is great for the school. It's great for the community. It's great for everybody to be proud of what this team is accomplishing up to this point in time. But if we start looking too far ahead, there won't be anything left to accomplish. So it's very important for us to understand that this recognition is happening, and because they're winning, and that's nice. But why are they winning is what's important to focus on. And I know our guys are capable and locked in on doing that.
Next up for James Madison, home to Appalachian State Saturday afternoon at 3:30, and Liberty fell to 4-5 overall, including 3-2 in Conference USA, with a 21-17 loss to Missouri State at Williams Stadium in Lynchburg, Virginia on Saturday afternoon. The loss snapped Liberty's 3-game winning streak. Liberty blew a 10-0 halftime lead, lost the second half 21-7, including giving up a game-winning 13-yard touchdown pass with 27 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Rough game for Liberty quarterback and Coastal Carolina transfer Ethan Vasco. He committed 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter, a lost fumble and an interception. Vasco completed just 18 of his 35 pass attempts for just 196 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He took 1 sack, which was for a 5-yard loss. He had 5 carries for 1 yard and a touchdown when to take out the sack that he took. A Liberty running back and Georgia Tech transfer Evan Dickens did have a second consecutive impressive game, 28 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. Dickens and Liberty's 59-30 home win over Delaware on November 1st had 22 carries for 217 yards and 4 touchdowns. Next up for Liberty at FIU, Saturday evening at 5.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file, Abbott Diabetes Care, or prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Well, Sunday was the birthday of Washington Capitals head coach Spencer Carberry. He turned 44. Hopefully, he had a nice birthday, but if he didn't, you could understand why. His team has lost 6 of its last 7 games and now is without a key player for a while. The Caps on Sunday morning announced that center Pierre-Luc Dubois this past Friday underwent surgery to address injuries to his abdominal and adductor muscles. Quote, due to the nature of the procedure, Dubois is expected to miss 3 to 4 months, end quote. Not good. He's on injured reserve of having gotten hurt in the Caps' 3-1 loss to the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena on October 31st. We knew that he was expected to be out for a while. Now we have more specifics. Meantime, a familiar theme has developed for the Caps. Dominate 5-on-5 play, but do poorly on special teams and lose. So the Caps had one game over the weekend, a 3-2 loss at the Tampa Bay Lightning on Saturday night. The Caps lost for the sixth time in 7 games. The Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 7-7-1. The Caps once again won the puck possession battle. They had 30 shots on goal to the Lightning's 19, and per natural stat trick had 50 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Lightning's 39, including 10 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Lightning's 6. But the Caps once again were bad on special teams. 0 for 1 on the power play, just 1 for 2 on the penalty kill. The Caps for this regular season as of games through Saturday were number 3 in the NHL in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage, 54.8, but were number 28 out of 32 NHL teams in power play efficiency, 14.9%, and were number 25 out of 32 NHL teams in penalty kill efficiency, 71.7%. The postgame session of Spencer Carberry on Saturday night began with this exchange between the radio play-by-play announcer for the Caps, John Walton, and Carberry, and then you hear a follow-up exchange between Caps insider Bailey Johnson of the Washington Post and Carberry.
Spencer, I know there aren't any silver linings at this point, but it seemed like you guys had a great start. There were a lot of offensive chances. You guys battled all the way to the end, got it tied. What was your view of this one?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's pretty accurate. Same old song. I thought we did some good things tonight. Controlled majority of the play. I mean, it was tight. It was a hard-fought game on both sides, so it wasn't a significant advantage, but I would say we go back through it, and I think the numbers will say that we had the better of the looks and more opportunities, more ozone time, but it was tight. But did a lot of good things and just finding ways to lose games right now.
Is that getting frustrating when it kind of feels like it's going that way for you guys for most nights?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure those guys in that room are as frustrated as anybody. We are as a coaching staff because, I mean, you've got to find ways, as everybody in here knows, to get on the other side of these games. And right now we're not. We're finding ways to come out up short. And so it's a play here and there. Just, you know, we everything's looks good. We get the game tying goal, and then we make a mistake. And no fault. We just bobble a puck, lose middle ice, and it's in the back of your net, and it's 3-2. That's how tight it is. So we're finding ourselves on the other end of some of those plays, and that's what we got to flip.
Yeah, and the Caps just are not scoring goals right now. 3 goals or less in 6 of the team's last 7 games, and all 6 of those games have been losses. So the Caps starting goaltender on Saturday night was Logan Thompson. He stopped just 16 of the 19 shots on goal that he faced, marking the first time that he allowed more than 2 goals in a game in this regular season. He was bested by Lightning goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky. He stopped 28 of the 30 shots on goal that he faced. Caps top-line left wing Alex Ovechkin had no points and 5 total shot attempts, including 3 shots on goal. The Caps on Saturday afternoon did announce having activated forward Ethan Frank from injured reserve. He had been on that due to an upper body injury that he suffered in the Caps' 1-0 loss at the Dallas Stars on October 28th. The corresponding roster move was the Caps loaning forward Spencer Smallman to their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. The Caps' healthy scratches for Saturday night were defenseman Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath and winger Sonny Milano. Next up for the Caps at the Carolina Hurricanes, Tuesday night at 7. And let's talk college basketball. We just had the first weekend of the 2025-2026 regular season, and the weekend included Maryland versus Georgetown on Friday evening, the first game between the two programs since November 15th, 2016. This absolutely should be an annual game, but this game this past Friday evening was all Georgetown. A perhaps statement win for the Hoyas in this season number 3 with Ed Cooley as head coach. Georgetown improved to 2-0 overall with a 70-60 win at Maryland, which fell to 1-1 overall. Official attendance of 16,594 at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Friday evening for this game. Not an easy task, a 6 p.m. start time on a Friday evening, but if you're a Maryland grad like me or just a Terrapins fan, this game did not go well. Maryland for this game was a 5-point favorite per multiple outlets and yet lost by 10 points. Maryland never held a lead. Georgetown began the game on an 11-0 run. The Terps trailed by as many as 20 points. That was in the second half at 50-30. Also, the loss snapped two notable streaks for Maryland, a 48-game winning streak in regular season home openers and a 23-game winning streak in regular season home games against unranked non-conference opponents. Now, this was an ugly game. Maryland's shooting from the field was horrendous. Georgetown held the Terps to just 4 for 21 on threes and just 9 for 31 on twos. The Terps' field goal percentage of 25 was the program's worst in a regular season home game since January 10th, 2007, and Georgetown holding Maryland to just 25% shooting from the field marked the Hoyas' best field goal percentage defense in a regular season road game since January 31st, 2015. But Georgetown shooting from the field was bad too. Maryland held the Hoyas to just 5 for 20 on threes and just 16 for 33 on twos. Also, the two teams combined for 68 free throw attempts. Maryland went 30 for 37 on free throws. Georgetown went 23 for 31 on free throws. And Maryland had 4 assists versus 13 turnovers. The Terps had 4 assists for the entire game. Like I said, this was an ugly game, but the game was controlled by Georgetown. The Hoyas had 30 points in the paint to Maryland's 16. The Hoyas had 14 fast break points to Maryland's 4. 49 of Georgetown's 70 points came from 3 players, Malik Mack, KJ Lewis, and Caleb Williams. 6'2" Malik Mack, he in 31 minutes as a starter went 3 for 9 on threes, just 2 for 5 on twos, and 6 for 6 on free throws. He finished with 19 points, 8 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 2 steals, and 1 assist versus 3 turnovers. 6'4" Arizona transfer KJ Lewis, he in 33 minutes as a starter went 1 for 2 on threes, just 4 for 10 on twos, and just 5 for 8 on free throws. He finished with 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists versus 4 turnovers. And 6'7" Caleb Williams, he in 30 minutes as a starter went 1 for 2 on threes, 4 for 6 on twos, and 3 for 4 on free throws. He finished with 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks. And 36 of Maryland's 60 points came from 2 players, Pharrell Payne and Miles Rice. 6'9" Texas A&M transfer Pharrell Payne, he in 38 minutes as a starter went just 2 for 7 from the field, all twos, and 13 for 15 on free throws. Finished with 17 points, 11 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards, 2 blocks, and 2 assists versus 2 turnovers. And 6'3" Indiana transfer Miles Rice, he in 27 minutes off the bench went 1 for 2 on threes, just 3 for 7 on twos, and 10 for 10 on free throws. He finished with 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist versus 4 turnovers. So the post-game press conference of Maryland head coach Buzz Williams on Friday night began with these exchanges between Gene Wong of the Washington Post and Williams.
Yeah, Buzz, your 25% shooting, how much of a function of that was what Georgetown was doing, or you guys missing shots that you maybe would make normally?
Yeah, I will always give credit to the opponent in every possible way. I thought they were physical from start to finish. We didn't handle their physicality very well. 42% of our shots were in the charge circle, and we made 33% of them. And so we have to finish at a higher rate regardless of the shot, but particularly when you're that close to the rim. We got fouled at a high rate, which was encouraging. We did a good job making free throws, but categorically the rest of our shot diet was good. But other than free throws, we just didn't shoot them at a high percentage. And so Georgetown can play at all times defense except when we're shooting free throws, so I'll give them credit.
And their 30 points in the paint, emphasis on that, just not let them touch the paint, or kind of how were they able to?
Yeah, in many respects, we got to the paint and didn't finish. They got to the paint sometimes in a different way, whether it was off the pass or off the bounce. But we got to the paint, or to the charge circle, shots attempted in the charge circle 42% of the time, and they were 49% of the time, which is too high of a percentage.
Yeah, props to Georgetown for this win. We'll see how good Maryland actually is, but regardless, this was a nice win for the Hoyas, who are making progress under Ed Cooley. Last season was a step forward season, and now this win at Maryland. Next up for Maryland, home to Alcorn State, Tuesday night at 7. Next up for Georgetown, home to Binghamton, Wednesday evening at 6:30. I'll talk Virginia Tech and Virginia in moments, but thank you to all of you who have given this podcast a 5-star rating and who have written nice reviews of the podcast. You on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. 5-star ratings are very much appreciated. Positive reviews are very much appreciated.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file, Abbott Diabetes Care. Per prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
More now on the college basketball weekend. Big win for Virginia Tech. The Hokies in the 2025-2026 regular season improved to 2-0 overall with a 107-101 overtime win over Providence at Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut on Saturday in the 2025 Basketball Hall of Fame tip-off. This was some game. It featured 14 lead changes and 18 ties. The Hokies held a lead for 16 minutes, 33 seconds. Providence held a lead for 16 minutes, 39 seconds. But the story of the game was Tech's 6'9" true freshman, Neocles of Dallas of Greece. He had a monster game. 34-14 as a starter, 5 for 8 on threes, 8 for 15 on twos, 2 for 4 on free throws. He finished with 33 points, 6 assists versus 2 turnovers, and 5 rebounds. Neocles of Dallas, he was ranked as the number 2 international newcomer in the 2025 class by 24/7 Sports. He is a potential lottery pick in the 2026 NBA draft. The guy can shoot. The guy has handle. He's a 6'9" point guard. Virginia Tech has not had a player taken in an NBA draft since Nickeil Alexander-Walker was taken with the number 17 overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. Neocles of Dallas has NBA draft pick, maybe NBA lottery pick written all over him. Next up for Virginia Tech, home to St. Joseph's Wednesday night at 7. And Virginia, it in this regular season improved to 2-0 overall with an 81-62 blowout of North Carolina Central at John Paul Jones Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia on Friday night. The Cavaliers never trailed, were very good offensively, 14 for 36 on threes, 14 for 25 on twos, 22 assists versus 12 turnovers. Actually could have scored more. The Cavs went just 11 for 19 on free throws. The Wahoos allowed North Carolina Central to go 6 for 14 on threes, but held North Carolina Central to just 13 for 46 on twos. Impressive performances by the Who's 2 starting bigs, Testa Ritter and Johan Grunlo, 2 true freshmen, each of whom is old for his class. The Who's leading scorer was 6'9" true freshman Testa Ritter, who's from Belgium and who is 22. He had exactly 30 minutes as a starter, went 3 for 4 on threes, 3 for 6 on twos, and 5 for 6 on free throws. He finished with 20 points, 5 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, and 2 assists versus 1 turnover. And 7-foot true freshman Johan Grunlo, who's from Germany and who's 20. He in 25-38 as a starter had 7 blocks, 11 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards and 2 steals. He went 0 for 2 on threes and 2 for 3 on twos, did not attempt a free throw. Also finished with 4 points and 1 assist versus 2 turnovers. Also, another big 7-foot Kansas State transfer, Ugana Onyenso. He's from Nigeria. He in 2014 off the bench had 10 points, 7 rebounds, including 4 offensive boards and 2 blocks. He went 0 for 1 on threes, 4 for 5 on twos, and 2 for 3 on free throws. I tell you, it's like the United Nations with these UVA bigs. Testa Ritter from Belgium, Johan Grunlo from Germany, and Ugana Onyenso from Nigeria. But the Who's have some quality bigs. We, during UVA head coach Ryan Odom's postgame press conference on Friday night, had this exchange between Mike Barber, editor-in-chief for SeavilleRightNow.com, and Odom.
The second game in a row that Tess, Ugo, Johan were really dominant in the paint. Can you tell from your eye, if that's going to translate when they don't have the same physical advantage that they've had in these two games?
We'll see. Yeah, we're just at the beginning of this. Yeah, I can't answer that right this second. I think we've got to get a lot better. We know that, and most teams do at this stage. If you stay like you are right now, it's going to be a problem. And so our focus is just to continue to play to our strengths, and certainly they're a part of that. Trying to get them the ball inside when we can is going to be important for us. But them making the right play when they get it in there also is important. And I think you saw, Tess catch it in the second half. They doubled really quickly, and then the ball was out, and then we were able to get a quality look. And so we have to use that advantage, that we have at times.
All right, next up for Virginia, home to Hampton, Tuesday night at 9. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday's show, episode 1196. We'll have plenty for you on the Washington Commanders, as we on Monday have head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference. Also on Tuesday's show, discuss the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are at the Detroit Pistons Monday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
At the end of the day, in order to get things going in the right direction, you have to be transparent, you have to be honest. And I don't think we are who we think we are.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file, Abbott Diabetes Care. Per prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.